Hi guys, I'm Caitlin. This is my sister Laura, 4 years younger than me. Unfortunately, my family loves him more than me. I'm not even sure they love me. In fact, if you look at it, I was always aware that my parents were much more loving and understanding towards Laura. However, that didn't bother me. Because she was younger than me, I thought it was normal for them to act like this. But after recent back-to-back events, I'm starting to think that Laura is my parents' favorite child. Now, I'm going to tell you about these events one by one. I request you to share your thoughts as comments. My parents, do you think they discriminate? Please guide me. We moved to the city we live in now in June. We used the same room as Laura in our previous house. Everyone has their own room now that our new house is big enough. We knew that the summers in this region were very hot, but it was much hotter than we expected. I literally can't sleep at night because of the heat. There is air conditioning only in my mother's bedroom and living room at home. So Laura and I don't have air conditioning in my room. After a while, Laura and I had to sleep in the living room. I hated sleeping in the living room, even though it was my own room. But I had no other choice, because my dad had spent a lot of money moving, and now it would be selfish to ask him to buy 2 air conditioners at once. One night, as always, I went to the living room to sleep. Laura had not yet arrived. He didn't show up until I fell asleep. When I woke up in the morning, I was surprised to see that he still hadn't arrived. On the way to the toilet, I heard voices coming from his room. He was making a TikTok video. I went into his room to ask how he could sleep in the heat at night. It was very cool inside, so I was very surprised. When I lifted my head a little, I saw the air conditioner on the wall. Yes, Laura's room had a brand new air conditioner that cooled it wonderfully, so she could sleep soundly in her own room at night. Of course, I was incredibly angry. Mom and Dad were having breakfast. I asked why only Laura bought an air conditioner. My father calmly said, "Your sister came to me and said she wanted to sleep in her room now and asked if we could get air conditioning. So I went and got one, and it was mounted while you two were at school," he said. So I said, "Dad, I live in this house too. You know I sleep in the living room too." My mother immediately put the words in my mouth saying, "Caitlin, if you wanted it, we would have bought it for you too." Then, when I said to buy it immediately, my father said, "If we buy it this month, we will have financial difficulties. But let's talk again next month," gave the answer. I did not prolong the discussion because they were clearly discriminating, and now they were trying to cover it up by talking irrationally. As I said at the beginning, they were always more affectionate towards Laura, but what they did was beyond that. I had a realization after the air conditioning incident, and I started paying attention to this type of thing. As a result, I saw clearly that my family loved Laura more than I did. Let me give you the first example that comes to mind. Housework has been part of my daily routine since elementary school. I do the laundry, I take out the trash, I cook when my mom says she'll be late from work. On the other hand, I've never even seen Laura take the glass of water in her room to the kitchen. My mother makes his bed, and I iron his clothes. I had a math test tomorrow when Mom told me to vacuum the living room. I asked if Laura could vacuum. When my mother answered, "Of course not," I said, "Why?" Do you know what she replied? "Because you have to do it," she said. Look at the explanation. I swept it like an idiot without saying anything. It's Laura's birthday next month. When my mom said, "What do you think? I'd like to have Laura's cake made in the shape of a TikTok logo this year," I decided that she was discriminating. On Laura's birthdays, the cake was made according to what she liked the most at that time. For example, last year's cake had Roblox characters on it, while my birthday cakes are made by my mother herself. If you ask him, it's a family tradition. He makes a cake for you with his own hands to show that he values it. I used to believe that, but now I know that he doesn't care about me. If she did it because she loved it, she would have made a cake for Laura in the first place. I pay attention to these, or it started to happen in a row in months, or it was always like this, but I was not aware of it. One morning, my sister came into the kitchen limping and hit her foot on the edge of her bed, hurting it. Laura said in an angry tone, "Mom, there was a thump. I was on the floor for 10 minutes in pain. I called you so much. Why didn't you come?" I couldn't believe my ears when I heard my mother's answer. "Oh, was it you? I heard your voice, but I thought it was Caitlin. I didn't come." "Oh God, I'm confused because your voices are the same. I wish I'd taken a look." Moreover, my mother said these in front of me. This was another proof that she didn't care about me at all. I couldn't stand it either. I said, "Laura, next time shout, 'I'm Laura,' so that my mother will understand." My mother couldn't say anything, but she glared at me as if I was the one to blame. It was obvious that Laura was the little princess of the house, but I couldn't understand because I always had good intentions. For example, when Laura's school show happens, our folks never miss it. If it's daytime, my father definitely takes time off from work. I don't have shows anymore, but when I was little, my father used to come to mine very rarely. And when he couldn't come, he always used work as an excuse. But when it comes to Laura, my father doesn't seem to mind. They go to the living room early with my mother and find a place in the front row. And throughout the show, they applaud their one and only daughter like crazy. Another thing about school is our grades. Whenever I get a good grade, according to my father, either the questions are easy or I was lucky because it came from where I work. So he makes excuses that my grade is not my success. In Laura, the situation is the opposite. She tries to make excuses for her failure because her grades are not good. Laura, every time she gets a bad grade, you said, "You had a headache that morning. That's why." He tries to prove that Laura is not the problem by making up things like, "This teacher asks very difficult questions anyway." When so many things like this came back to back, I got very depressed and started getting stuck with things I wouldn't normally care about. I needed to find a solution. I registered on a website that provides online psychologist services. The session fees were very affordable. I saved my pocket money for a while, and I made an appointment with the psychologist on the site. We had an hour-long video call, and I explained everything I went through in detail. At the end of the session, the psychologist said to me, "Caitlin, you can't solve this problem alone. Neither I nor any other psychologist can help you. You should confront your mom and dad and tell them as you told me. If they love you both equally, which I think they do, they need to convince you of this. Or you may be right, and they may be unwittingly discriminating between you and your sister. If that's the case, your parents need to make an effort so that you don't feel this way from now on. Don't waste your time with psychologists. You can only solve this problem with your family," she said. What they said was very logical. I decided to talk to my family at the first opportunity. Last Sunday, Laura was staying with a friend of hers. The house was available. I said to my parents, "I have an important matter that I want to talk to you about." Of course, they were very curious. I think I talked for 1.5 hours without interruption. Neither my mother nor my father interrupted me. They just listened. In fact, I couldn't stand it in a few places and cried. Actually, it was good to even say these things. But unfortunately, I didn't like what was said afterwards. First of all, they said that we never discriminate and we love Laura and you very much. It's okay in this part. But what my mother said made me very sad. You both have very different personalities, so we may treat you differently to Laura. Laura's character is like cats. She only pays attention to us when we pay attention to her. Her general tendency is to stay away from use. That's why we always have to be nice to her, and your character is the opposite. When I heard my mother's last sentence, I became very red with anger. I understood what she meant, but I pretended not to understand and asked, "What does the opposite mean?" My mother couldn't say it openly. She said, "It's the opposite of the cat." I think he regretted the example he gave. I couldn't stand it, so you mean the dog. Laura's character is a cat. My character is a dog. No matter how badly you treat the dog, she will still come and love you. I mean, in your eyes, I'm like that, right? I said. My mother tried to defend herself by shaking her head by saying, "It may not sound very good, but I wanted to tell you that your characters are different." I think what my mother said clearly proved that they made the distinction. When they saw that I was very upset, they tried to take my heart. My father said, "You are both very precious to your sister. There is nothing to be upset about this." But I got my answer. They insisted a lot, but I did not continue to speak. Well, do you think my parents distinguish between their children? My opinion hasn't changed as to whether they love Laura more than I do. Also, the cat-dog analogy that my mother made for our personalities was also very strange. Could you please share what you think in the comments? You can be sure that I will read all your posts one by one. Take care and see you.